Free Your Mind, The Inner Revolution. Inspired by Peter Crone. Written and published by Audible Aria. We've all been conditioned. We've all been wounded. We've all created identities. Not because we're broken, but because we were trying to feel safe in a world that often didn't make sense. But now it's time to evolve. This journey is about liberation. Not through effort, but through awareness. Not by fixing yourself, but by remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. In these chapters, we'll unravel the old programs. Fear, shame, resistance, self-doubt, and gently replace them with truth, love, and presence. You'll learn how to stop chasing freedom and start living it, not someday, now. Chapter 1. The Virus Within. I want to begin this journey with a reminder that may feel strange, even uncomfortable, but it's the truth. The virus didn't create fear. It revealed it. You see, what most people don't realize is that fear isn't something born from the outside world. Fear isn't something the media creates, or a pandemic brings on, or a moment of crisis injects into you. Fear already lives within us. It hides in the crevices of the mind, quietly informing your decisions, shaping your beliefs, driving your behavior. And all it takes is the right circumstance to bring it to the surface. COVID was that circumstance. It was a global hall of mirrors. It reflected back to each of us the areas where we were not free. It exposed the insecurities, the traumas, the buried emotions we've avoided for years. And because the trigger was so sudden, so massive, we didn't have the luxury to hide anymore. And so I ask you, where did your fear come from? Was it fear of the unknown? Fear of dying? Fear of losing control, of losing someone you love? Fear of the collapse of the system you depend on? Whatever it wasn't new. It was always there. The virus simply showed it to you. And that's a gift. Because now that it's visible, now you can heal it. I want you to consider something deeply. The mind loves to attach meaning to events. But the events themselves are neutral. The meaning is yours. And in moments of crisis, your mind will do everything it can to keep you safe, even if it means feeding you stories rooted in fear. But I'm here to help you break free from that. Let's look at the fear of death, because that's where all fear ultimately leads, isn't it? The fear of death is the granddaddy of all fear. It hides beneath the surface of your stress, your anxiety, your worry. It's the fear that says, if this happens, I won't survive. I'll lose myself. I'll lose everything. But here's the paradox. You're already dying. From the moment you were born, that process began. Life and death are not opposites. They are partners in this dance of being human. One does not exist without the other. You don't step into a mirror and only see light. You see contrast. That's life. Birth comes with death. Joy comes with sorrow. Gain comes with loss. Expansion comes with surrender. When you accept death, truly accept it, you stop fighting life. There's a beautiful teaching from the ancient Upanishads where a boy goes to meet the god of death and says, "Teach me what this is." And the god responds with a truth so profound it still echoes today. The only way to conquer death is to die to the idea of death itself. When you face your fear of death, when you stop resisting it, you begin to live in a way you never have before. You become lighter, freer, more present, more alive. You stop clenching. You stop bracing. And that, my friend, is where healing begins. We live in a society that's obsessed with fighting. We fight cancer. We fight depression. We fight viruses. We fight aging. We fight ourselves. But fighting is resistance. And what you resist persists. Instead of asking how to fight the virus, I ask, how do we upgrade the system? Just like a computer operating system gets upgraded when it's vulnerable to viruses, we as human beings are being called to upgrade ourselves. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We don't need to fear a virus if our internal system is strong. If we're living with vitality. If we're in alignment. If we're not carrying years of suppressed trauma, resentment, fear. So ask yourself, where do I need an upgrade? Is it in the way I speak to myself? Is it in the way I treat my body? Is it in the thoughts I choose to rehearse every day? These are the questions that lead to transformation. Because fear will keep you locked in place. And fear always points to one thing. A part of you that still believes it won't be okay. You think, if I get sick, I won't be okay. If I lose my job, I won't be okay. If my partner leaves, I won't be okay. If I fail, I won't be okay. If I die, I won't be okay. But what if that wasn't true? What if, in every one of those situations, you would be okay? Just in a different way than you imagined. This is the reframe that unlocks peace. It doesn't mean life won't be challenging. It doesn't mean you won't lose things or people. It doesn't mean you won't experience grief. But it means you'll no longer be ruled by your fear. You'll no longer be at war with what is. Because here's the truth. You cannot be at war with life and expect to feel free. You cannot be in resistance and feel flow. You cannot cling to certainty and expect growth. And so I invite you, in this first chapter of our journey together, to consider this. What if the very thing you fear is the thing that will set you free? What if the virus, the panic, the chaos, the collapse? What if all of it is the universe inviting you home? Home to yourself. Home to your truth. Home to the part of you that was never afraid. Let this be the beginning of that homecoming. Let this be the start of the inner revolution. And it begins not by fighting what you feel, but by loving even the parts of you that are terrified. Yes, even that part. Love your fear. Love your resistance. Chapter 2. Death as the doorway. Death. It's the one thing we all try to avoid. Yet it's the only thing that's guaranteed. We hide from it. We pretend it won't happen. We distract ourselves, medicate ourselves, fill our lives with noise, just to avoid that one uncomfortable truth. You are going to die, and so am I. Everyone you love, everyone you admire, everyone you fear. We all have that one thing in common. Our time here is finite. Now, I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying it to free you. Because when you truly accept death, not intellectually, but at the core of your being, something extraordinary happens. You stop living in fear. You stop living small. You stop trying to control everything. You stop trying to manage perception, to force outcomes, to hold on tightly to things that were never yours to begin with. Instead, you begin to live fully. You speak more truth. You love more fiercely. You play more freely. You let go. See, most people spend their lives in a quiet panic. Not because they're weak or broken, but because they've never made peace with their own impermanence. They're terrified that something will go wrong, that life won't turn out how they imagined. And behind that fear is the ultimate fear, the fear of non-existence. But here's the paradox. You're already dying, every moment, every breath. this body, this identity, it's all temporary. It's borrowed. So why are you fighting it? Why are you living like you've got forever when you don't? This is the illusion we must dismantle. Not because it's morbid, but because freedom lives on the other side of it. There's an ancient samurai code that says, "The warrior must contemplate death daily, for in doing so he loses all fear and becomes fully alive." That's what I want for you. I want you to stop living in fear of something that is simply part of the contract you signed when you arrived on this planet. You came here to die, and in between, you came here to live, really live, boldly, authentically, lovingly, wildly, messily, freely. But to do that, you have to let death in, not as an enemy, but as a teacher. Death shows you what matters. It shows you what's real. It shows you what's true. When you acknowledge that this ride will end, you stop sweating the nonsense. You stop wasting energy trying to impress people, prove things, or win invisible races that don't exist. Instead, you wake up. You show up. You start asking questions like, what legacy do I want to leave? What am I holding on to that no longer serves me? If I had 1 year left, how would I love? How would I live? That's when life starts to get really interesting. But let's be honest, death is uncomfortable. Not just physical death, but all kinds of death. The death of a relationship. The death of an identity. The death of a dream. The death of who you thought you were supposed to be. And yet, every one of those deaths is a portal, a doorway to the next version of you, the real you, the free you. Because what dies is not you, it's the illusion of you. What dies is the false identity, the narrative you clung to, the story you inherited that says, you're not enough unless you achieve, succeed, prove, perform, protect, or pretend. That's what's dying. And thank God, because it's heavy, and it's exhausting, and you don't need it anymore. When you let that part of you go, when you allow it to dissolve, to fall away, to be burned in the fire of truth, what's left is your essence. What's left is the infinite, the sacred, the unshakable. You. Not the version of you shaped by trauma, expectation, or fear. But the real you. The one that's always been there. The one that doesn't fear death. Because it knows it was never truly born. And therefore can never truly die. This is what the mystics have been trying to tell us for centuries. Your identity is an illusion. Yes, you were given a name, a story, a role to play. Yes, you've had real experiences, real pain, real heartbreak. Yes, this human life matters deeply. But beneath all of that, you are awareness itself, consciousness, presence, that which sees but is not seen. So when I talk about death as a doorway, I don't just mean the end of your body. I mean the end of your identification with the parts of you that were never truly you. That's the invitation. That's the real revolution. And here's the beauty. You don't have to wait until your last breath to experience that liberation. You can start right now. Close your eyes, take a breath. Let go of who you think you're supposed to be. Let go of who they told you to be. Let go of the mask and feel what remains. Feel the stillness. Feel the space. Feel the freedom. That is the real you. And that space, that presence, cannot die. It's not bound by time. It's not limited by form. It's not diminished by circumstance. It simply is. That's who you've always been. And that's who you return to, again and again, every time a piece of you dies. So don't be afraid of the endings. Don't resist the unraveling. Don't fight the fire. Walk through the door. and let who you're not fall away, so who you truly are can rise. Welcome to the other side of fear. Welcome to the truth that sets you free. Welcome to life beyond death. Chapter 3. Time is an illusion. Most of your suffering, your anxiety, your regret, your fear, your frustration, is built on a misunderstanding of it. Time, as most people relate to it, is a prison. We obsess over the past. We worry about the future. We replay things that have already happened and rehearse things that haven't even occurred. And in doing so, we miss the only place life is actually happening. Right now. See, the past and the future. They're illusions, beautiful, convincing ones, but illusions nonetheless. The past doesn't exist except in your memory. The future doesn't exist except in your imagination. And both are happening in the same place, your mind. When you really get that, not just understand it mentally, but feel it in your being, you start to reclaim your power. Because all fear is future-based, all regret is past-based, and neither one is real. Try this. Where are you right now? Not where your thoughts are, where your life is. It's here. In this moment, in this breath, in the sensation of your body, the beating of your heart, the awareness of your attention. That's it. That's all there ever is. The mind will try to convince you otherwise. It'll tell you that the past defines you, that the future is a threat, that if you don't obsess, prepare, control and strategize, you'll be vulnerable. But that's not your soul speaking. That's your conditioning. That's a program, a loop, designed to keep you safe, yes, but also small. We live in a world where people spend more time in their heads than in their lives, worrying about things that already happened, rehearsing pain that hasn't even arrived, fantasizing about things that, if they came true, wouldn't even satisfy them the way they imagine. It's madness. And it's optional. When you live in the past, you become a prisoner of your story. When you live in the future, you become a slave to your imagination. When you live in the present, you become free. This is what I want for you. Presence. Not in some spiritual bypass kind of way, where we ignore reality and float around pretending everything's bliss. Number real presence. Raw. Honest. Awake. Where you feel what's here. Where you own your truth. Where you breathe life in with nothing in the way. Let's talk about fear. Fear, as many say, is false evidence appearing real. But I like to shift it slightly. Fear is the feeling experienced as reality. In other words, you have a feeling. Anxiety, panic, dread. And your mind attaches a story to it. Then you begin to believe the story. Now the feeling gets stronger. And the loop continues. But the entire loop is being projected onto a moment that hasn't even happened yet. What if you could interrupt that loop? What if you could sit in the feeling without assigning it a narrative? You'd find that the fear has no substance. It's not who you are. It's simply a vibration passing through the body. You are the space it's happening in. That's why the work isn't about controlling your life. It's about changing your relationship to it. It's not about fixing the past or managing the future. It's about realizing that neither one is where your power lives. Your power lives right here, in your ability to respond to what is, as it is, without needing it to be different. And the mind hates this. It wants certainty. It wants security. It wants timelines and guarantees and proof. But life doesn't work that way. Life is now. Life is breath. Life is energy moving through form. And when you surrender to that truth, when you stop trying to outthink reality, you start to feel peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer at war with what is. Here's a powerful question I often ask my clients. Where does the future happen? Most people point out there, somewhere in front of them. But the truth is, the future only happens in your mind, between your ears. And that means the only place the future can ever affect you is right now. You feel the anxiety now. You react now. You constrict now over something that hasn't even occurred. It's wild when you really see it. But this is what gives you access to transformation. Because once you understand that time is a construct, you can stop living like a victim to it. You can forgive yourself for the past. You can stop bracing for the future. And you can finally start living now. This is where joy lives. This is where love lives. This is where creation begins. And that's the opportunity I'm inviting you into. To shake the etch, a sketch of your mind. To clear the screen. To stop identifying with the drawing and return to the blank canvas. The you that exists before the story. The you that doesn't need time to be whole. The you that is already enough. Time is useful, yes. For planning, for remembering, for dreaming. But don't confuse the map for the terrain. The only moment you'll ever live in is this one. So stop living in yesterday. Stop escaping into tomorrow. Stop rehearsing your pain like it's who you are. Let it go. Let it die. And watch what rises in its place. Peace, presence, power, all here, all now. Chapter 4. The Inner Virus. There's a virus far more pervasive than any you'll find in the physical world. You don't catch it from someone coughing on a subway. You don't test positive for it in a lab, and you won't find it mutating under a microscope. But it's real, and it's deadly. It's the virus of the mind. It's the belief that you're not enough. The belief that you're broken. The belief that you're unworthy of love unless you prove, perform, or pretend. That is the virus I'm talking about. It lives inside the stories you inherited as a child. It hides in the way you talk to yourself when no one else is listening. It shows up in your relationships, your career, your health, your choices. Everything. It's the voice that whispers. You'll never make it. You're too late. You're a failure. You should have done more. You should be someone else by now. Sound familiar? That's not your truth speaking. That's the conditioning. That's the inner virus. And it's time to heal it. Now, let's take a breath. Because there's no blame here. You didn't invent this pattern. You weren't born with it. You inherited it. You mimicked it. You absorbed it from your environment. From your parents, your teachers, your culture, your experiences. You learned consciously or unconsciously that being who you are wasn't safe. So you built armor. You developed coping strategies. You learned how to survive. And that armor, it worked. It got you here. It helped you function in a world that didn't always feel safe. But it's also what's now in the way. Because survival and freedom are not the same thing. Surviving means adapting to a broken system. Freedom means rewriting the code. That's what this chapter is about. See, most people don't realize they're infected. They just think it's normal to feel anxious all the time, to doubt themselves, to hold back, to overthink, to obsess over what others think. But it's not normal, it's just common. And there's a big difference between the two. So what's the cure? The first step is awareness. Start to observe the voice in your head. Not as you, but as a program that's been running for a long time. Watch how it talks to you. Listen to how it judges, criticizes, controls. Does it sound like love, or does it sound like fear? Because love doesn't need to prove anything. Love doesn't threaten. Love doesn't say you're not enough. Love holds. Love accepts. Love tells the truth. And fear? Fear manipulates. Fear distorts. Fear plays the long con of self-sabotage. That's the virus. Now, once you see the pattern, the second step is this. Don't fight it. Why? Because what you resist persists. Don't try to overcome the virus by pushing harder. That's the old paradigm, the same one that got you sick in the first place. Instead, we upgrade. Like a corrupted computer, you don't need to destroy the machine. You just need to update the operating system. That begins with truth. And truth sounds like this. I am not broken. I am not behind. I don't need to do more to be enough. I am already whole. It might feel strange to say it. Your nervous system might reject it. But keep going. Because underneath the virus of unworthiness is the truth of who you are and who you've always been. Now, let's talk about how the inner virus shows up in the real world. It shows up in perfectionism, where you can't relax unless everything is flawless. It shows up in procrastination, where you delay your dreams because deep down, you don't feel ready. It shows up in people-pleasing, where you abandon yourself to win approval. It shows up in addiction, not just to substances, but to validation, drama, control, chaos. It shows up in comparison, where you constantly measure your worth against someone else's highlight reel. These are all symptoms, but the root, it's always the same. I don't believe I'm enough. That's the lie. And your life will shift the moment you stop trying to prove otherwise and start dissolving the belief altogether. Because you can't outrun a virus that lives inside your identity. You can only heal it by changing the identity itself. Who would you be if you didn't believe you were broken? Who would you be if you didn't think you had anything to prove? Who would you be if your default mode was love, not fear? That's the version of you that's waiting on the other side of this healing. And listen, I'm not here to pretend this is easy. These belief systems go deep. They've been rehearsed for decades. They live in your body, your breath, your bones. But they're still just beliefs, not truths. And the beautiful thing about beliefs is they can be changed. You're not your thoughts. You're not your conditioning. You're not your pain. You are the awareness behind it all. And once that awareness takes the driver's seat, everything changes. You don't have to fight anymore. You don't have to fix yourself. You just have to remember who you are underneath the fear. And that's what I'm here for. Not to give you more strategies or hacks, but to invite you into the liberation that comes when you finally let go of the story that says you're not enough, because you are. Right now, as you are. No more masks, no more pretending, no more proving. The inner virus only has power when you believe it. So stop believing it. Start living your truth. That's the cure. Chapter 5. Healing the Identity Construct. So let's talk about identity. Because until you understand what it actually is, you're going to keep suffering for something that was never truly you in the first place. Most people think their identity is who they are. It's not. Your identity is simply a construct, a story, a collection of thoughts, beliefs, and labels you've gathered throughout your life. And the moment you believe it's you, you've created a prison without even realizing it. Let me explain. From the moment you're born, you're being shaped. By your environment, by your caregivers, by your culture. You're told what's acceptable, what's lovable, what's dangerous, what's expected. And naturally, because you want to survive and be loved, you start adapting. You create a version of yourself that fits into the world around you. A version that won't be abandoned. A version that will get praise, or at the very least avoid punishment. That version becomes your identity. I'm the responsible one. I'm the overachiever. I'm the black sheep. I'm the people pleaser. I'm the strong one. I'm the failure. I'm the anxious one. Whatever it is, it becomes your story. But here's the truth. None of it is you. It's just who you thought you had to be. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's adaptive. It's intelligent. It got you through some tough chapters. But eventually it starts to hurt. It starts to feel tight. Like wearing shoes that no longer fit. Because you're no longer that scared little kid trying to make sense of a confusing world. You're not that rejected teenager. You're not that disappointed adult. You're the witness to all of that. You're the consciousness that observed it, survived it, and now is ready to be free of it. See, identity becomes suffering the moment you believe it's fixed. When you think, I'm just not good enough, or I always mess things up, or I'll never get it right. You're not stating facts. You're reciting programming. You're giving life to an old version of yourself. And you're doing it now, in the present, which is the only place life actually exists. That's the crazy part. You're rehearsing the pain of your past as if it's still true now. And the nervous system doesn't know the difference. So your body, your emotions, your choices, they all start to reflect that identity back to you. You think it's reality. It's not. It's a loop. But loops can be broken. So let's break it. I want to invite you into a powerful question. Who would you be in the absence of your story if you couldn't identify as the one who was abandoned, the one who was overlooked, the one who was betrayed, the one who's not good enough? Who would you be? If the slate was clean, what would you choose? What qualities would you embody? What would your posture be? How would you speak to yourself? How would you walk into a room? That's the truth trying to emerge. That's who you really are, underneath the layers. Now, I want to be clear. This isn't about denying what you've been through. We don't dismiss trauma. We don't ignore pain. We simply stop building our identity around it. You are not your wound. You're the one who survived it. You're the one who's healing it. You're the one who gets to rewrite what it means. You are not the rejection. You are not the diagnosis. You are not the failure. You are not the divorce. You are not the bank account. You are not the title or the lack thereof. You are the consciousness choosing how to relate to all of that. And that is pure power. When you realize your identity is flexible, editable, you become a conscious creator instead of a reactive character. You stop living in reaction to the past, and you start creating from vision. Let's go deeper. Most people are addicted to their identity, even if it's painful. Why? Because it's familiar. There's a strange safety in believing, this is just who I am, even if it makes you miserable, because at least it's known, and the ego would rather be certain and suffering than uncertain and free. But you're not here to repeat what's been safe. You're here to expand into what's true. And truth always requires death. The death of the old self, the death of the persona, the death of the defense mechanisms. But every death is followed by a birth. And the birth is who you actually are, before the world told you who to be. The birth is freedom. The birth is love. The birth is you in your full, unguarded, infinite self. So I'm asking you now, are you willing to let the old identity die? Are you willing to lay it down with gratitude and walk into a future that's not based on who you were, but who you are becoming? Because everything you're seeking, the love, the peace, the fulfillment, it lives in the version of you that's no longer clinging to the past. And that version, it's already here. You don't need to find it. You just need to let go of everything that's not it. Take a breath. Feel that. Feel who you are, beyond the name, beyond the age, beyond the resume, beyond the reputation, beyond the pain. That's you. That's what you've been seeking all along. And that's what becomes possible when you heal the identity construct. Chapter 6. The practice of awareness. Awareness is the beginning of all healing, everything we've talked about so far. Fear, identity, conditioning, inner freedom. None of it changes until we become aware, until we actually see what's been running the show from behind the curtain. So let me be clear. You can't shift what you can't see. You can't heal what you don't acknowledge. You can't release what you won't face. Awareness is the key that unlocks the door to transformation. It's the first breath of fresh air after a lifetime of holding your breath. But awareness is not just some intellectual idea. It's not about collecting more information or becoming really good at quoting spiritual cliches. Number awareness is embodied. It's present. It's alive. It's the part of you that notices without judgment, that watches without needing to react, that listens without the compulsion to fix. That's true awareness. And when you live from that place, everything changes. You start to see your own patterns, not with shame, but with compassion. You hear your inner critic, and you no longer mistake it for truth. You catch your impulses to react, and you breathe instead of bite. This is the work, and it begins not with effort, but with honesty. I always say, life will present you with people and circumstances to reveal where you are not free. So when discomfort arises, it's not a punishment. It's an invitation. The trigger is the teacher. Let's say someone cuts you off in traffic and rage shows up. Beautiful. There's the pattern. Now, can you pause? Can you feel the emotion without blaming it on the outside? Can you observe your inner dialogue without becoming it? That's awareness. And from that place, you have a choice. You can go unconscious, let the nervous system run the show, react, lash out, reinforce the story of I've been disrespected, or I'm not safe, or the world is against me, or you can take a breath, feel the energy, let it rise and pass, and move forward consciously. That's where freedom lives. Not in changing the world, but in changing how you relate to it. Now, people often ask me, okay, I'm aware of the pattern. I see it. Now what? And the answer is simple, but not always easy. Practice. Awareness gives you the insight. Practice makes it real. Let's say you've spent years believing you're not lovable. You see it now. You've traced it back to your childhood. You understand where it came from. That's amazing. But insight alone won't change your nervous system overnight. You've got to practice a new way of being. Maybe it's pausing before you automatically say yes to something you don't actually want to do. Maybe it's catching yourself when you're about to over-apologize or over-explain, and instead you stand in your enoughness. Maybe it's choosing to speak up in a conversation, even when your voice shakes. This is how we reprogram the old patterns. By embodying new ones, moment by moment, with grace. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. It's like learning to play an instrument. You can't just read about music theory and expect to sit down and play jazz. You have to practice. You miss notes. You try again. You build the muscle. You refine your tone. You listen more deeply. Awareness and embodiment are exactly the same. And here's the kicker. Your ego will hate it, because every time you practice a new behavior, one that contradicts your old identity, your ego panics. It thinks it's dying, and in a way, it is. That's the death of who you thought you had to be. So you've got to stay with it. You've got to breathe through the discomfort. You've got to love yourself through the unraveling. You've got to be patient with the parts of you that still want to go back into the familiar cage. Because freedom is unfamiliar. Until it's not. Let me offer you a tool I love using with clients. The who would I be if question. Let's say you're aware that you always play small in meetings. You've practiced it for years. You know it's rooted in the belief that your voice doesn't matter. Beautiful, you're aware. Now, ask, who would I be if I didn't believe that? Let the question land. Feel into the answer. Not in your head, but in your body. Would you sit taller? Would you speak more clearly? Would you relax your jaw? Would you trust your instincts? Good. Now practice that. Not because you're trying to become someone new, but because you're finally allowing yourself to be who you've always been. That's the difference. We're not here to perform or perfect ourselves. We're here to remember ourselves and remove everything that's in the way. Awareness is the light. Practice is the path. And freedom is the byproduct. You don't need more information. You don't need more spiritual bypass. You need presence. You need patience. You need practice. One breath at a time. One choice at a time. One loving interruption of the old pattern at a time. That's a work. That's the path. That's what it means to live free. Chapter 7. Dismantling self-oppression. Let's have an honest conversation. If someone followed you around and said the things to you that you say to yourself, how long would you keep them in your life? Would you invite them over for dinner? Would you trust them with your heart? Would you let them speak to someone you love? Probably not. And yet, most of us carry an inner voice that says things to ourselves we would never say to another human being. That's what I call self-oppression. It's the invisible violence we inflict on ourselves. Quietly, daily, often unconsciously. And it's exhausting, it sounds like. You're not doing enough. You should be further along by now. Why can't you just get it right? What's wrong with you? It hides in the way you second-guess yourself. It lives in the tension in your jaw. It shows up in the way you overwork, overgive, over-apologize, overcompensate. It's subtle, but it's constant. And it's time to bring it into the light. Because the most destructive forms of oppression don't always come from the outside. They come from within. And here's the most mind-blowing part. You learned it. You learned to talk to yourself that way. You learned to push yourself that way. You learned to believe that love, peace, worthiness, they have to be earned. But it's a lie. And it's one we have to unlearn if we ever want to live freely. So how did this start? Well, let's go back. As children, we all just wanted one thing, to feel safe and loved. And we were observant, incredibly sensitive. We noticed which behaviors got approval, which ones triggered disapproval. We learned when to speak up and when to stay silent. We noticed tone, energy, micro-expressions. We became little experts in survival. And somewhere along the way, we made some decisions. If I'm quiet, I won't be punished. If I get good grades, I'll be praised. If I don't cry, maybe I'll be accepted. And those decisions, innocent as they were, became belief systems, programs. Then came the voice. Be perfect. Don't feel that. Stay strong. Hustle harder. Don't mess up. At first it felt like protection. But now, it's a prison. Because that voice never shuts off. No matter what you achieve, it says. Not enough. No matter how kind you are, it says. You should have done more. No matter how tired you are, it says. Keep going. That's the inner tyrant. And let me say this clearly. It's not your fault. You didn't invent it. You inherited it. You mimicked it. You absorbed it. But now that you're aware of it, it is your responsibility to dismantle it. Not through force, not through shame, but through truth, through love. So let's get practical. Step 1. Notice the voice. Start listening to your internal dialogue the way you'd listen to someone else talking to your child. Ask, is this kind? Is this helpful? Is this necessary? Step 2. Interrupt it. You don't have to argue with it. You don't have to fight it. But you can stop believing it. You can pause, breathe, and say, thank you, but we're not doing that anymore. And then choose a different path. Step 3, replace it. Start practicing a new internal language. And no, I don't mean fake affirmations. I don't mean plastering, I love myself, over a mountain of shame you haven't addressed. I mean truthful, grounded, loving statements that reflect who you really are. Statements like, I'm doing the best I can. I'm allowed to rest. My worth isn't tied to my productivity. I'm already enough. Say them out loud, write them down, feel the difference. And I know, at first it will feel awkward. You might not believe it. That's okay. You've been practicing oppression for decades. You won't unravel it in a day. But with love, with patience, with practice, that inner tyrant gets quieter. That old programming starts to dissolve. And something beautiful begins to emerge. A new voice. Gentle, wise, honest. A voice that says, hey, I see you. You've carried so much. You've done so well. It's safe to let go now. That's the voice of your soul. That's the voice that sets you free. And here's the real magic. As you stop oppressing yourself, you stop oppressing others. You become more compassionate, more present, more open, more human. You let people be who they are, because you've learned to let yourself be who you are. You stop needing to control. You stop needing to fix. You stop needing to prove, because there's nothing left to protect. That's what this work is about. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before you learned to be so hard on yourself. It's about coming home. Not to some ideal version of you, but to the most authentic, open, relaxed, loving version of you. And that version changes the world. One breath at a time. Chapter 8. Letting go of should. Let's talk about one of the most dangerous, subtle, and socially accepted forms of mental imprisonment. The word should. 3 little letters. Infinite suffering. I should be further along. I should have known better. I should be more productive. I should be happier. I shouldn't feel this way. They shouldn't have done that. Sound familiar? It's like an endless loop, a background soundtrack of inadequacy that never turns off. And here's the kicker. The moment you use the word should, you're arguing with reality. You're saying that what is should somehow be different. That's resistance. That's internal war. That's suffering. So let's slow this down. When you say, I should be further along, what you're really saying is, I'm not okay where I am. You're rejecting the present moment. You're rejecting yourself. You're reinforcing the story that your value is conditional, tied to achievement, milestones, performance. And the thing is, should never leads to freedom. It only leads to guilt, shame, pressure, and paralysis. Because when you live in should, you're constantly chasing a version of yourself that doesn't exist. A phantom, a mirage. You're chasing a horizon. And the closer you think you get, the further it moves. That's the nature of should. It's never satisfied. So let me offer you a radical alternative. Let go of should. Not as a gimmick, not as a temporary practice, but as a deep spiritual release. Just drop it. All of it. Because should is not truth. Should is a mental projection, an internalized judgment born from past conditioning, layered with societal pressure and laced with shame. It's not real. It's not helping you. And it's not required for your growth. Now I know what might be happening in your mind. That little voice is saying, but don't I need should to stay accountable, to evolve, to grow? Let me be clear. Accountability is beautiful. Conscious commitment, gorgeous. But there's a world of difference between. I want to take better care of my body, and I should be healthier. The first is rooted in love. The second is rooted in shame. One empowers, the other oppresses. So let's draw that line clearly. You don't need shame to evolve. You don't need guilt to grow. You don't need pressure to perform. You need truth. You need compassion. You need intention. That's what creates sustainable change. Now here's a practice I use with clients. Every time you hear yourself say should, pause. Replace it with either. I choose to. I want to. I get to. And feel the difference. I should work out more becomes, I choose to move my body because I love how it feels. I should forgive them becomes, I choose to let go because I want to feel peace. I shouldn't feel this way becomes, I am feeling this way, and that's okay. Let me meet it with curiosity. Now we're talking. Now you're in reality. Now you're in your power. See, reality is never the problem. It's the story we attach to it, the resistance, that causes the suffering. There's a beautiful clarity that comes when you stop needing life to be different than it is. You stop arguing with the past. You stop clenching around the present. You stop bracing for the future. You relax. You soften. You return to presence. And in that presence, you discover something extraordinary. You are already enough, not when you finish the to-do list, not once they validate you, not after you fix everything. Now, as you are, in this moment. That realization, that deep cellular knowing, is what begins to dismantle the addiction to should. Because should is a language of separation. It separates you from peace. It separates you from self. It separates you from others. But presence is unity. Presence is the only place love lives. The only place healing happens. The only place you can breathe again. So if you take nothing else from this chapter, let it be this. Nothing has to happen for you to be free. Let me say that again. Nothing has to happen for you to be free. No condition needs to be met. No past needs to be rewritten. No future needs to be secured. The freedom is available now, in the letting go of the story that says, I should be somewhere else. Because the truth is, you're right where you're meant to be, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. And real is where all transformation begins. So breathe, let go, drop the should, and choose love, choose presence, choose now. Chapter 9. Beyond Resistance. Loving what is. There's a fundamental shift that happens in the human experience when we stop resisting life and start loving what is. That's the heart of this chapter, because most people live their lives in some form of resistance. Resistance to what happened. Resistance to what's happening. Resistance to what might happen. And resistance is exhausting. You feel it as tension in the body, anxiety in the mind, or a kind of emotional tightness that never quite goes away. It's the background hum of, this shouldn't be happening. But here's the truth. What's happening is happening. Your resistance doesn't change that. It only creates suffering on top of it. That's the mind's great illusion. It thinks if it fights hard enough against reality, it'll win. That something will shift, change, or magically reverse just because we don't like it. But life doesn't work that way. Life isn't asking for your approval. It's simply unfolding. And the moment we can meet what's happening, not with judgment, not with avoidance, but with loving awareness, everything softens. Let me say it like this. The only thing standing between you and peace is your resistance to what is. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with it. But you can meet it with openness, with curiosity, with love. Because what's the alternative? You fight reality and lose. Every single time. Now, I want to be really clear here. Loving what is doesn't mean you're passive. It doesn't mean you roll over or become apathetic. That's a misunderstanding. Loving what is means you start from acceptance and then choose your response consciously. It means you stop reacting and start creating. You stop clenching and start flowing. You reclaim your power. Here's a simple example. Let's say you get sick. Something unexpected hits your body. The mind says, "Why me? This is terrible. I don't have time for this. This isn't fair." And suddenly, you're not just dealing with the physical illness. You're dealing with the emotional resistance to it, the panic, the shame, the stress. Now you've got two problems, the actual illness and the fight against it. But what if you paused? What if you softened? What if you said, "Okay, this is here. Let me breathe. Let me listen. Let me care for myself in a new way." Now healing becomes possible. Now the body can relax. Now the nervous system can reset. Now presence returns. That's a shift. And it applies to everything. A breakup, a loss, a failure, a delay, an unexpected curveball from life. When we meet it with love, with open, grounded attention, it transforms. Why? Because resistance feeds fear, but love dissolves it. Let me take it a step deeper. What if nothing is wrong? What if life isn't out to get you? What if you're not being punished? What if the thing you're resisting is actually here to help you evolve? That's not spiritual fluff. That's reality. Every trigger, every upset, every breakdown, it's showing you where you still believe you're not safe, not worthy, not enough. It's life shining a light on your own unconscious beliefs. And when you resist it, you miss the gift. But when you welcome it, when you lean in and say, okay, I'm listening, something opens. Suddenly, that fear becomes a teacher. That frustration becomes a mirror. That challenge becomes a doorway. And you walk through it. Not with control, but with courage. Not with resistance, but with reverence. Because here's what I've learned. The moment you stop needing life to look a certain way is the moment you begin to experience real peace. It's not about fixing. It's not about forcing. It's about allowing. Allowing what is to be here. Allowing the pain. Allowing the beauty. Allowing the mystery. And loving all of it. That's where freedom lives. You don't need more control. You don't need more certainty. You need trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in life. Trust that whatever's arising is here for your growth, your awakening, your healing. And that's what loving what it really means. It means saying yes to life. Even when it's messy. It means looking your pain in the eye and saying, you're allowed to be here. It means welcoming the full range of being human. Not just the highs, but the heartbreaks too. Because every moment is sacred. Even the hard ones. Even the ones you'd never choose. Even the ones that make no sense. Yet. So my invitation to you is simple. Let go of the fight. Let go of the judgment. Let go of the timeline, the agenda, the story of how things should be. And love what's here. Not later, not after it's fixed, not once it's better. Now just as it is, just as you are. Let love in. Let love lead. Let love be the space where transformation begins. Chapter 10. A New Human Blueprint. We've come a long way. We've explored fear, death, identity, resistance, and the unconscious beliefs that quietly govern our lives. And now, here, at the end, I want to offer you a vision, a possibility, a blueprint for what's next. Not just for you as an individual, but for humanity as a whole. Because something is shifting. Can you feel it? There's a quiet revolution happening. One that doesn't look like shouting or fighting, but like healing, like waking up, like remembering who we are. Beyond the pain and programming, this chapter isn't about more ideas. It's about embodiment. It's about integration. It's about the version of you and the version of us. That's possible when we let go of the old operating system. So let's start here. What does the new human look like? The new human is not ruled by fear. The new human doesn't seek worth through performance. The new human no longer wears masks to be accepted. The new human is rooted in truth, in presence, in compassion, in sovereignty. It's a human who feels deeply but isn't run by emotion, who sees clearly but doesn't need to control, who leads not by dominance but by example, through alignment, humility, and love. The new human doesn't live from should. They live from choice. They're not trying to be perfect. They're living in full permission to be real. They've stopped outsourcing their power to titles, to systems, to approval, and they've reclaimed it as something innate, unshakable, quietly powerful. That's where we're heading. And it begins with you. You listening right now, remembering. I'm not broken. I am not behind. I am not too late. You were just operating on outdated code. Code passed down through generations of fear, survival, and separation. But now? Now you get to choose. Now you get to upgrade the system. Not from ego, but from awareness. You get to build a life rooted in clarity, joy, and connection. A life that feels like truth. Because here's the thing. The old paradigm of hustle, of shame, of judgment, It's crumbling. You can see it everywhere. The institutions, the systems, the relationships that were built on control or manipulation, they're breaking down. And that's not bad. That's evolution. We're not being punished. We're being invited to let go, to grow up, to rise. This isn't just personal work. It's planetary. Every time you interrupt an old pattern of self-judgment and choose kindness instead, you shift the collective. Every time you say no to self-abandonment and yes to authenticity, you ripple something out into the field. Every time you stop projecting your pain onto others and take responsibility for your healing, the world gets a little lighter. This is how we build the new. Not through blame, not through burnout, through awareness, through embodiment, through love. And it starts small. It starts in how you speak to yourself in the mirror. It starts in how you show up when no one's watching. It starts in the way you breathe through discomfort instead of reacting from it. That's how the new human is formed. Not overnight, but in every moment you choose presence over panic, peace over performance, curiosity over control. This is what I call spiritual maturity. It's not about escaping life. It's about engaging with it more honestly, more gently, more courageously than ever before. And it's not a finish line. It's a practice. You'll forget. You'll fall back into old loops. You'll react. You'll doubt. You'll clench. But now, you'll remember faster. Now, you know what it feels like to come home to yourself. And that memory, that knowing, it will pull you forward. Again and again, into deeper truth. So let me leave you with this. There is no version of you that is more worthy than the one breathing right now. Not a more successful you. Not a more healed you. Not a more spiritual you. This you, here, now. Exactly as you are. Is enough. Let that land. Let it sink in. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to rush anywhere. You don't have to carry the weight of becoming someone you're not. You're already it. You are the miracle. You are the medicine. You are the one you've been waiting for. So breathe. Trust the process. Choose the new blueprint. Not because it's easy, but because it's true. A blueprint of love, of presence, of liberation, and above all else, of coming home to the truth that was always inside you. I am free. I am whole. I am already enough. Let that be your foundation. Let that be your practice. Let that be the revolution you carry into the world. Not later. Thank you for listening.